Okay, so we're
gonna say hello again.
How
We're
many
not
times
gonna
is he
say
going to
hello
say hello?
again. We're just going to start the video. Oh
dang.
God. We're going to start the
Always
video.
saying hello, this guy.
Oh God. Oh God. So we're going to start the video. Okay, so we're going to look at the news. That's what we're going to do because there's some big news. We've got the Lord of Pain. We've got Slaanesh. Anyway, it was the weekend. It was the Warhammer World Open Day. Do you know what that means?
New minis.
I mean, they didn't. I don't know. Like, the only funny bit about it was that up until a week ago, it cost money to go, and then like a week ago, they were like, probably not selling many tickets. This is free, by the way. This is free, everyone. It's free to
Please come.
Yeah, it's free. Anyway, so they announced 2 new Battletomes, which is really fun. So I thought we could talk about those first. Which do you want to start with, Dan? Do you want to start with Khorne, or do you want to start with Slaanesh?
Let's start with Khorne, because I feel like we haven't spoken of, like, no one speaks about Khorne very much at all these days.
Well, a little side note today, this weekend, Konstantin Kalatos in Sweden went 5-0 with Khorne, no Scarbrand, and he used an exalted Bloodthirster, not even a regular one, the big Forge World bro.
Yeah, Jesus.
Which is good because it's obviously yeah, and he won the whole event, 5-0.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway,
Where was this?
in Sweden.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Crazy
Far out.
Swedish guys. Wow.
Yeah, go the Swedes or the Swiss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he loves that army.
Which I don't know which. I'm bad at the world.
Never trust Rob if he says Sweden or Switzerland because
I'm
It
bad
was
at geography.
Sweden. I know it was in
it's
Sweden.
changeable.
It was
So
definitely in Sweden.
I'm bad at geography. However, I did at one point, I think in grade 11 or grade 12 when I was in high school, my claim to fame is that I won like an Australia-wide geography award for like standardized tests.
Nice.
Because I'm terrible at it, I went through and just spelt words with the answers on the scribble sheet and then I won. And they did a big presentation at like a school assembly and I had to stand there and be like, and then they were asking me like if I was gonna travel or stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm getting this for. I don't know what I did.
And
so
then
yeah,
that is the Dan Origin story. I did not until this day. And then walking home with the trophy is like, I'm just gonna make shit up forever. Like that's the story. That's the moment you became
I'm the
you.
second best in the country at geography.
just making up. That's because it was Australian geography. You just make names up like.
To be fair,
all
Australia
the
isn't
names are
real.
Yeah.
Where are you going? Google Sploz.
Yeah.
What? That's a place.
Right, okay, so a place that is a place is the Mortal Realms. And we've got the Realmgore Ritualist empowers the Khorne faithful by showering them in the blood of the land. The ear of the beast has induced savagery across the mortal realms, as the primal energy of Khorne suffuses the fragile minds of the mortals. This outbreak of barbarism has pleased Khorne greatly, and his blood-mad worshippers have conducted vile new rituals. Now, a lot of people today might be asking where James is. It's because we're about to talk about Khorne. Yeah?
He's conducting a violent ritual somewhere.
Yeah, he's against it.
Mm.
Yeah.
He refused to be a part of this show, which was really offensive.
Yeah, he was like, not for me, not dealing with those. Realmgore Ritualists conduct the sacred blood rites of Khorne, spilling oceans of Ichor, or is it Ichor, as they slit throats of countless prisoners and etch vile markings into the earth to glorify their ravenous god. So, Nathan, I'll jump out with you and the Twitch chat. Nathan, how do you feel about the model?
I had a brief look at it earlier. It looked alright. It looks very corny, like a dude with big muscles, or is it a dudette?
It's a Sheila.
As somebody with big muscles.
Correct, Nathan. Correct. You don't know how they feel. That's correct.
Yep. They have got great muscles, and they're probably cross about something, and looking for blood and skulls.
That is a great description. Like, I might do like a real quick guide to all the factions Age of Sigmar. I'll be like, Khorne, dead cross. Like, moving on.
Khorne, probably cross about something.
You're probably cross about something, and it's your fault.
Grumpy.
Oh yeah, for sure, it's your fault.
Yeah. And Dan, what do you think? What do you think of the miniature?
Okay, so the first thing I just wanted to come out with is I love the background concept for it. Like Khorne carving stuff into the land, like the land is a body for them to conduct their worship on, I think is a spectacular kind of like lore step. So instead of just their people being like, oh, we carve up our people, we make sacrifices, blah, 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 like them treating the land, I love that. I love it as a concept. And I think that it's a wonderful example of the flexibility of Age of Sigmar. So big ticks there. I love the model. I really dig everything that's going on. The only thing that I do worry about is like that long staff is going to be a nightmare to transport. Just a double length unsupported staff. But the mini, the concept, the everything, spectacular.
So I'm interestingly writing like a little script at the minute about Age of Sigmar, and one of the things that I touched on, I was like, when people are like, bring Old World back, it's so good, bring Old World back, and like bring back fantasy Germany and fantasy France and fantasy Egypt, and you're like, okay, this is good. Like it's quite clearly got themes coming from kind of like the Aztecs. They've like some of the new Khornate war bands and stuff. It's quite fun. I think that they've picked a zone or an area really for the Khorne stuff to be from, or maybe they're just riffing and it'll go somewhere else after this. But I really like that because I would be hard pressed. I think I can kind of see the influences, like the cultural kind of influences there, but similarly it almost feels like its own thing again, which I think is good. And I think it's a great mini. I think it's really, really cool. Getting onto our rules, they look a bit mish. Which is desecrating the blood runes. Once per battle, always a good start. At the end of your movement phase, you can pick one objective terrain feature within 3 inches, and I assume this lady does not go super fast, so it's not necessarily a large threat range on this ability. If you do so, so you pick a terrain feature of this unit and say that it has been marked with desecrating blood runes. If you do so until the end of the battle, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by melee weapons by friendly bloodbound units while they're wholly within 8 inches of that terrain feature. So there's a lot of stipulations there, which probably, if I was a Khornate player, I would be a bit worried. As we've talked about previously on the show, I don't think that the Sin and Bin writers both work now. Either the Sin guy left or the Bin guy left, depending on your interpretation. Based on the new
recent rules.
Yeah, based on the new Gits book, the Bin guy left. Is all I'm going to say. Because it's really well written and absolutely fine. 5 months, 2 weeks. So no dramas.
What's the time thing about?
The 5 months, 2 weeks. That's how long I've decided it is before I'll say anything bad about the Gits book.
Oh, okay. 5
months, 2 weeks. Because you're allowed 6 months, Nathan.
I'm going to try real hard to make that not work.
I try really hard to fucking ruin your life.
What he said, yeah. I don't mind it if she's cheap, and that's like it is an edition where galley vets are the tippity top. So having a galley vet that wants to get the gold, get to an objective, and then makes their people. It's just, I think the tough thing is that you make them more punchy, but not more durable. But then again, that's Khorne. It'd be weird if it was like gives them armor save or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's just like, so you have got to be near a terrain feature once per game, and also it's just +1 to hit.
She's not going to be unique, is she?
No.
So
she's probably going to be a priest, as is being pointed out in the chat.
I'm sure they could tunnel master wherever the hell they want to.
And
some terrain pieces can be quite big. So if it's 8 inches from a terrain piece, that can be quite a big area.
No, I agree with you. I don't think it's like awful. I just think that's a lot of stipulations to once make everyone +1 to hit.
Like but it's for the rest of the game, though, isn't it?
I don't hit rolls for attacks, melee weapons or friendly bloodbound units while they're wholly within 8 inches of that objective or terrain feature. So only while they're near that objective. Sorry, that terrain feature.
All right.
So yeah, no, like I know what you mean. So like basically, if you fight around a certain area, then you're better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So on some scenarios that's a good thing. On others, then you'd probably be looking at terrain features because
I'd say like scenarios that have a central objective, this will be really useful for. To just plop it down and basically be like, I've got a 16-inch bubble in the middle of the board that I get +1 to hit with.
Yeah, I would say that like if I was a Khorne 8 player though, like the first rule I would ever want to see for about a new Khorne Battletome would be run and charge or retreat and charge, like something that's because like so. I guess it's time to talk about like kind of wishlisting the new Khorne book in some ways. So Khorne have fairly languished in the stats for a couple of years. They're a combat army which has always just not been the best combat army, and they don't really do shooting, which is a bit of a shame. So like they've kind of like they've had their blood tithe mechanic not reworked, but like some elements changed on it time and again. And people have definitely won events with Khorne. They're not useless. And then like there's been a lot of like Skarbrand plays recently. So Skarbrand has seen loads of play over the past year that he did not see maybe in the 2 years previous. I think this is a 3 to 4 year book, so it's fairly old.
That book's is very old, isn't it?
But also, it's the book with the most iterations other than Stormcast, because it was the very first Age of Sigmar book that we got with Stormcast. It was the release army, and then it had that Battletome, and then it's had 1, 2, 3 other Battletomes. This being I think this will be its 4th Battletome. So it's had a lot, although equally the same amount as Lumineth, and that's only been out for like 2 years or something.
Everything will always have the same amount as Lumineth.
Yeah, which is pretty funny. But so like the book has languished a little bit, but like it's been always a mid-board combat army, which we would love, and I would love to see some changes to it. Nathan, you ever played against any Khorne 8 armies? You got any thoughts about Khorne? What you'd like to see for a Khorne army?
Yeah, it's been ages since I've played against Khorne, I think. I can't remember the last time. Oh, this bloody computer keeps wanting me to turn off filter keys. No, I don't want to do that, whatever that means. Maybe I should take some of the shit off of the keyboard. There you go.
Thanks, Nate. Thanks, Nate, for the tech update mid-show. That's good. Yeah.
Always important to know that your tech's functional and
that's
prepared.
Good. That's good. People at home, like just right now, being like, "Oh, I'm glad he's told me that. That's really helped me out." I was worried
for him.
I was worried for him. Yeah.
There was beeping in my ears. Now I want sticky keys. What's that all about?
See, that's the issue, is that when your keyboard wants
the sticky keys.
When your technology wants to start kikeying, that's a code that you should be aware of.
Yeah,
that means it wants to talk
something
some
you
shit.
need to be conscious of if you could deal with that. Okay.
But yeah, it's been ages since I played Khorne. I think the last time I played it was Skarbrand, and he was quite easy to deal with just by blocking him up, because
he doesn't fly.
Yeah, he can't fly, so you block him up till you're ready to deal with him, and then you go over there and you chop him up, and then he dies. He's quite scary if you don't do that, though.
He's also very scary if you leave him on 1 wound, which I've done a couple of times. Like gone in being like, he's got 2 wounds left, guaranteed I'm going to take off 2 wounds, and then you only do 1. You're like, oh fuck, no, and he just ruins whatever he looks at.
Well, so I mean, Khorne is kind of like such an interesting army, like ultimately, because it shares a space with lots of other armies, like specifically Ironjaws. Like Ironjaws are predominantly only a combat army. Nighthaunt, pretty much predominantly only a combat army, and they've both got their kind of unique ways of playing that are quite different to each other. And then Slaves of Darkness, they're also our new kind of like combat mid-board threat. Most popular faction in the game right now, 10% of the meta in tournaments. Yeah, they're more popular than Stormcast, which is really exciting.
Wow.
So like they're kind of like an interesting army, because they're going to go into the game of battle, like specifically like combat orientation, and like there's already some really good armies that fulfill that space. So I'll be quite interested to see what they do with that. Also, weirdly, like Khorne's always been oddly like techie. It's always like had quite a lot of like interactions
with the blood tithe stuff and all.
Even like the use of the skulls, the blood skull, the hex gorger skulls or whatever. Like there's always been some interesting like tech combos for them.
Yeah, and the blood tithe. If people aren't aware, the blood tithe mechanic is when stuff dies on either person's kind of side of the board. So any player's stuff dies, you add 1 to the blood tithe. You keep racking those points up, and you can use them for abilities, which kind of feels wildly at odds with Khorne. Ultimately, it almost feels like the war points feels very corny. Like the more like with the war points, again, if you don't know, if you're playing big war, you generate war points, and then generally the army gets stronger. It feels like there should be some sort of like mechanical threshold that you hit with Khorne when stuff
like a similar thing. So as like it builds up a crescendo sort of thing. Is that what
I think so. I think so.
I was going to say, how would you expect Khorne to play compared to like Ironjawz then?
Well, that's the kind of problem, isn't it? Like, the interesting thing with Slaves to Darkness, as we're seeing, is like it's all about those marks that you give them, and they're just if you look outside of the cultists, like it's quite hard to create like loads of tricksy combos with Slaves to Darkness. You can do it, absolutely. You get the right keyword characters, the quite right keyword units. You start combo stacking some stuff. You could do some definitely very interesting things. And that kind of makes sense for Slaves to Darkness in a lot of ways. But other than that, they don't really break the core mechanics of the game. Ironjawz obviously get like almost like a pseudo double move. They can have like a charge in your opponent's charge phase. I feel like there should be a sub-faction where it's charging your opponent's charge phase. Because I don't know how that's not the most Khorne rule that's ever written ever. So I think it'll be really interesting to see it play, because ultimately I also think a lot of people are really drawn to the Khorne army. They see it and they're like, yeah! Like, they say the word blood for, they're like, blood for the blood god, and they get the t-shirt, and they get like a Khorne tattoo, and they're like, yeah! And then they're like, right, okay. Listen, what we're going to do turn 1 is we're going to sacrifice 2 units. We're going to get the blood tithe to double move the bloodthirster, pile in 6 inches with this other unit. Do the boom, make sure that you clear that screen, pile in the other one 6 inches, double activate, there you go. And they're looking at you like, I didn't even spell my tattoo right, mate. It's spelled with a C.
It says Khorne.
It says Khorne. It says Khorne.
I think okay, one thing I will say is, and having read a few of the books about it as well, and I'm just going to agree with White Trash Wargamer there, saying like Khorne is the god of like valor and military strategy as well. In the same way that people used to go like Slaanesh is just all about sex. It's like, well, no, Slaanesh is about excess, about gluttony, about all of that stuff. Khorne, like there's been some really cool stuff where it's talking about Khorne, like Khorne warriors not being blood crazed fiends. They like want to find this. They're almost like they want to find the strongest opponents and defeat them to prove to Khorne that they're the best. Like there is some knowledge there, but the fact that sometimes the best parts of Khorne aren't just like, it's not the combat. It's like the army is like, when's a Tzeentch army at its best? When it's casting magic or throwing fire at you. Like when's a Nurgle army at its best? When it's durably holding up or poisoning you. And it's like, when's a Khorne army at its best? It's just not.
When it's piling 6 inches.
Yeah, when it's piling in 6 inches and hitting you with guys that only hit on a 4+ in an army that is completely addicted with close combat.
The other kind of secret is like we haven't seen any of the oracles at the moment. We haven't seen seen any oracle paint jobs yet. I don't think we've seen any of the Khorne bros being painted up. So maybe they're out there in the wild already. We don't know. So I feel like maybe this could be close to release, which would be fun to see. It's got a big range. It's got demons and mortals, kind of I guess 2 sides of a book that gets discussed a lot. It feels like a bloodthirster. I know this is going to sound super weird, but it feels like a bloodthirster should be a unit you can't take and one that you summon. Do you know what I mean? Like almost like a threat to your opponent. Like, hey, 5 units are dead. If you kill 3 more units, there's a free bloodthirster on the board. Like that's an issue for you, not an issue for me, which I think is quite fun. I don't know. I think you can do a lot of really interesting stuff with this book, but then that almost feels at odds with making interesting techie pieces for Khorne feels weird. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Well, it feels weird when that's the gearing of the entire army. I don't think it'd be as weird if it was like you've got this huge offensive push and then you're doing some tech in the background. You know, like it's like, oh, what are you trying to do? Well, we need to stop the tech from happening, but we need to get through these waves of blood warriors and cultists to do it. That feels very Warhammer. But being like, what are you doing? Everyone stands here in a castle while we gather blood tithe points. And you're like, okay. And then we slingshot a bloodthirster at you. And then after it dies, we probably just slingshot more bloodthirsters at you.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
because the normal dudes don't do anything in a Khorne army, really, other than die.
Which is fucked up, because a blood warrior is, like, covered head to toe in weapons, like, and armor. Like, it's just a full, like, it's crazy looking at a blood warrior and it just being not as good as, like, I'm not saying it should be chosen, but it should be decent, like, in my personal opinion, which is kind of weird. So, yeah.
They do hit on 3s now, right? Like, they're still not sitting in the same... Remember when, for, like, the first 2-3 books, blood warriors, I'm pretty sure, were 4s and 4s or something like that.
Yeah,
You're like, these are the armored chosen of Khorne. I think they do hit on 3s now, but
yeah, I'd like to see them be way more elite personally, because you already have the Reavers, who are the naked bros. You don't need like another like trash tier. Grimlocky, thanks for subscribing. But anyway, so Khorne, very interesting, very interesting. I guess we could talk. There's something I wanted to talk about at the end, the kind of the season of the one character release, but we'll talk about that as we go through. Oh, by the way, the art, because it's going to be relevant in the next conversation. The art's great. I actually don't know who the guy on the front cover is or what miniature it is.
Skull. I think it's a Skull Reaver.
Yeah, I thought it was a Skull Reaper as well. Like I thought that was what it looked like.
Because they can have demon weapons. You know, like they can have just like the regular axe, or you can give them demon weapons, I think.
Yeah.
Also,
fantastic art. We don't know who made it. Obviously, if you're listening, artists, please join the union. But yeah, looks great. I think this is some of my favorite art. Nathan, what are your thoughts on the art? Or are you still doing the sticky keys?
Yeah, no.
You spilt a bunch of porridge in there, I think. It's all getting stuck.
Oh, there he is. I've just built Trekkie Flint.
You built Trekkie Flint?
Oh! He's just fallen off his base.
Standing on his tentacle.
Oh,
yeah,
Trekkie.
he's on a tentacle.
Have you got any thoughts on the art for the Blades of Khorne book?
The art looks great. I do like the Khorne art, actually. Yeah, in that art, on that book. Yeah, that looks cool. Yeah, looking forward to seeing the rules. So, if they're going to be crazy, if they're going to be like as fighty as Squigs, maybe that'll be scary.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the other problem as well. Like, that's the other problem is we've already had 2 very big combat forces released. We've had the Slaves to Darkness, we've had the Squigs in recent memory. So it'll be quite interesting to see where that goes, because Beast of Chaos is probably the techiest army in the game. Probably the highest skill ceiling in the game right now is
Oh yeah, the new Beast of Chaos. Yeah.
Amazing. So it'll be interesting to see where like a pure combat force or a predominantly combat force ends up. Yeah, and for anyone who's just joined us late, Nathan is currently bioluminescent thanks to his time spent in the dank hold. Some people don't know that.
The only other thing I just wanted to quickly touch on with the Khorne releases is that they're clearly there's a new Vanguard box, which is just all old models, which isn't a problem. They're great models. They all hold up, the Blood Crushers, the Blood Warriors, and the Reavers. It just seems odd that the character in it isn't the new character. You know,
really?
like it seems odd to me that, like, and I mean that genuinely, in most of the Games Workshop releases, if they release a Vanguard box around the same time as a single model foot hero, they put the new one in there to encourage you to buy the box.
No. Oh, they did with Beast of Chaos. Nathan's one, they just reprinted the same front cover. Which was stonks. Yeah, there's definitely kind of like a weird analysis of these 1 foot hero releases and what they've done to the army. I have an ongoing thesis, which I'm going to break down at some point, where I think that they've written the books intentionally around the character. Like it's necessary. Like, you know, they've effectively, but that doesn't work for Beast of Chaos, and we've kind of talked about it on the show, just in talking at some point. But I think, like, if you go back and look, or armies that have kind of emerged, the most recent kind of Fyreslayers build is just 2 Flame Keepers as an example. Feels like they really wanted to do it with a Thrallmaster, but didn't quite pan out the way they wanted. But yeah, like those single releases The Squig Boss is like a great example. Like that book is literally written around the Squig Boss, right, Nate?
Squig Boss, yeah.
He's such a key element in all those big Squig armies which are running people over. So
yeah. Hey,
and sorry, just to be clear, because the chat's jumping in there a little bit as well. I kind of meant like I was admittedly looking at the 40k stuff as well. Because if you look, the Farsight and what's his Nuggets, the other one, the Orc, both got put in their boxes. So it seems odd that the releases all being announced around the same time are being done differently.
I'm gonna, Nathan, just listen. The microphone near your face, bud. Just for. It's okay. We won't. I'll cut that out of the recording. Don't worry. That's.
No, it's fine.
Okay, no,
it's the best part of the show.
It's the best part of the show. Oh
and
no!
when we say hello again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's that when we say it. Right. Okay. So let's talk about the next one, which is Slaanesh. Oh boy, the Lord of Hubris punishes foes who will fall for his perniciously peacocking provocations. Whew. Okay. The Dark Prince Slaanesh remains incarnated for fuck's sake. The Dark Prince Slaanesh remains incarcerated in the twilight non-realm of Ulguish through his mortal legions continue to try and free him. I've lost the ability to read and free him with all their might and guile. Now an arrogant new hero has deigned to join the quest, strutting into battle and daring anyone who thinks they're skilled enough to take him on in single combat. So here we go. The new mini. What do we think of this guy, the Lord of Hubris?
I thought the mini looks cool.
Yeah?
Yeah, I don't know what the general consensus on computers has been, but yeah, it looks cool.
I don't think there has been a general consensus. I think I think a lot of people really like it, but I think there's a really good conversation about the fact that it doesn't have a lot of like filigree and other stuff, so it's quite like there's a lot of negative space. That's what I'm going to say.
I love it. Do you know why I love this model? Because it's not over designed. If you want to add a bunch of shit to it, you can add a bunch of shit to it, but it doesn't have tons of unnecessary detail.
Disagree. Loads of extra detail. That's what I'm paying money for. Like I know that we are all being robbed by the price of these minis, but like I at least want it to like have 19 different textures and layers. Why isn't there like a weird bobcat at its feet, or it's just something weird and additional? That's what I want. Spend a lot of money on this, Dan. I don't want like just a regular sword that maybe I could sculpt. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that lightly. Okay. He looks like Sigval from the Pound Shop, says Rob Kelly. Love it. Okay, that seems fair. Rob has been arch-villain pilled. I have been. That is true. That is true. Is it even chaos if it isn't covered in spiky bits? That's also a really great point. I agree. Terrible website, though. Right, these master duelists make flamboyant beeline to the enemy's finest, aiming to goad them into personal combat with their arms spread. And then we've got this. Their rule. You first, I insist. This unit has a ward of 4+. In addition, he's not.
I love that it's an in addition to a ward. Like it's like he's got a ward. In addition, you're like, what the fuck does his ward need on top? That should be the end of the rule. This unit has a 4+ ward. Next rule.
Rule, yeah. Like, because they're not related. It's just
no. It's just like the whole "you first, I insist." How does that relate to him having a 4+ ward? Like he's like, "You first, I insist." Saying that gives him a 4+ ward. Fuck off. Yeah, two rules. No in addition.
Also, I'd like to point out that I actually do like the mini a lot because he looks like the pink guy who's like offering Batman out, or maybe Bane in that kind of in the meme.
Jog PLC, I'm going to say, has hit the nail on the head with Bowie's Goblin King. Amazing.
Wait, he looks like he does not look as cool as Bowie's Goblin King. What?
No, but it's giving that vibe. I get it.
Yeah, there's some powerful copies energy. Almost a gut plate.
Almost a gut plate. Yeah, true.
Which I think is quite interesting. Almost a gut plate. Okay, you first, I insist. These units have a ward of a 4+. In addition, at the end of the charge phase, you can pick one enemy unit and this is the end of every charge phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit and say that the Lord of Hubris will give them the chance to strike first. If you do so, the strike first effect applies to that enemy unit in the following combat phase, but all of that unit's attacks must target this unit.
Love it.
So that's pretty awesome. Like, you assume he dies very, very quickly. I mean, like 5 wounds, 5 wounds with a 4-up save, but it's quite interesting, like, burying him or nestling him in the front of an army is quite fun. I quite like that, especially against, like, Death Star units. That's pretty interesting.
Giving him Tunnel Master, popping up and having a like using a command point to reroll your charge. You've got a good chance of hitting your 9, and then say tagging someone's screen on the corner and forcing them to be stuck in a combat they can't fight.
Yeah, it's true. You aren't in Age of Sigmar. You are forced to fight if you're eligible to fight. You have to fight. However, you're not. If you're eligible to pile in, you don't have to pile in. A kind of interesting mechanics. I think what's really interesting about this is like shutting Death Stars down. But the kind of counterplay to this is, like I said, we're seeing loads and loads of mortal wounds in the charge phase at the moment. And I love the idea of just running through and like this guy just being like, "You first, I insist," and the loads of squigs just being like, "No, actually, me first." Splat.
And now we're gonna eat your mates.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, though, a unit has to declare all of their attacks at this, like where their attacks are going when they fight. So if, for instance, like say a Stonehorn goes into him or something like that, or a big unit of squigs, you have to say, like, at the time when you're declaring, it's like, cool, everything's going into him. Sure, you kill him, but you stop that unit from allocating any attacks to the rest of the unit, even after he dies.
Normally, charge phase mortal wounds happens in the charge phase. So
true. Yeah,
that happens before that. So that's quite. But again, that's not super common. Like, it's not all over the place, but it's quite fun that we've been seeing.
And he's got a 4-up ward, so he's probably going to halve those. So.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great rule. Compared to the Khorne 8 rule, it feels really wicked. And then we've got the frankly terrible front cover for the Slaanesh book, which is perfect pleasure and pain. Because if they end up with really great rules in the book, then they're going to be like, oh, yes, finally. But also, the book looks gross.
I'm pretty sure I've seen the original artwork for this, and it's better. Like, it's darker. The Keeper of Secrets has a dead person in their claw. Like, I think that this artwork isn't the original artist's version. They changed it and updated it. They made it brighter, because I've seen the comparison of the two, and the original is much better.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, they did change huge portions of it. The colors, they even sorry to go here, but the pillar in the back of the picture, they smoothed it off. I don't want to explore that anymore on the Slaanesh front cover, but that happened. And yeah, like there's been a load of yeah, they polished the shaft at the back.
Which does seem about right.
yeah. I've also seen the original, and the original does look better. But this is why we get to talk about the Slaanesh as an army, right? Number one, I think that we didn't talk about the Vanguard boxes. Sorry, the Vanguard box for this army we should talk about first. The Hedonites Slaanesh, pretty good box. I'm going to say it. Great. You got Blissbarb Archers. You got the Slangor Fiendbloods. And you also got either Slickblade Seekers, or I think they're a dual kit, or they go in with a Slickblade, not Slickblades, the other ones, the Reavers.
Blissbarb Archers, yeah.
The Blissbarb Seekers.
That's one.
Yeah. And I think it looks very, like, I think it's a great box. Like, if I was buying GW minis.
And the Shard Speaker is an awesome model as well. The character in there.
It's a fantastic model. I reckon you could comfortably sell the Shard Speaker to people who just want a cool mini.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Dan. So I think it's one of those boxes that if you were buying GW minis, you could buy an absolute ton of. That said, though, Dan, kind of one of the chats that you've been having recently is about over-designed minis. And I think couldn't be an army that's more over-designed.
Yeah, it's like, and see, the reason I talk about over-design, right, is that heavily designed miniatures with tons of different textures and all that, that's all well and good, but then you have to paint it. And yes, you've got the slap chop that cuts through a lot of that and can get it, but for a lot of people, that excess detail is a barrier to entry. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that more and more, we've got everything is getting more and more design, more and more elements, more and more detail. We're not seeing any more like simple entry point stuff for people that maybe want to cut it down.
I think it's going to swap back. I think that they're going to realize that they've over-designed, and then they're going to swap back. I think the most recent Space Marines are kind of an example of that. But like you know, we're probably looking at miniatures that were designed up to, and this is going to probably blow your mind, 5 years ago. Like it could be within the past 4. But they weren't designed 2 years ago. They were designed beyond that. That's how far out that they work. Yeah. Which is pretty crazy. So it's going to take a lot of time to get that feedback that maybe some of this stuff is over-designed. But I mean, because that over-designed, if you want to paint, you can just have the best fucking day painting, right? This is this is hours and hours of hobby available from the set.
But that's what I don't mind having bits that you put on, you know, like the detail that you add to a mini, that's fine. But it's when it's sculpted on, and if you don't want it, you have to find a way to carve it or clip it off, which a lot of the time I do.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair. Nate, do you like the Vanguard box?
Yeah, sweet. I like the Slaanesh models are cool. The Bliss Barb's great. But like you say, they are proper intricate as well. But then this dude, the new dude, like we've just said earlier, he's a bit more of just a regular dude. Just put on his normal pants instead of his fancy ones. So
he is not, as they say, a fancy pants. So Slaanesh, interesting as an army. Originally, it had way back in the day, being an old man, the General's Handbook contained allegiance abilities for armies that didn't have books yet, and that's where we first saw Slaanesh's allegiance abilities. Then we got the first book, and as you all know or should know,
fucking rocked.
They rocked it. Yeah, I don't know if I got called a terrorist for just saying that they should be banned from events.
They rocked it sorry, I should be clear. They rocked it in a truly bad way. It was a pretty rough negative player experience going up against them.
Yeah, they had it was the most broken book there's ever been. I think that's probably true.
Keepers of secrets and characters making enemy units fight last on a 2-up or a 4-up, being able to attack twice, like Keepers of Secrets
all of them attacking twice.
Yeah, like it was messed up.
Yeah, it
probably
was
fairly ordinary in today's books, but at the time it was mental.
I don't know,
Nate. They were
Nate.
fighting against.
I don't know if you remember, like the whole thing. You struck last with the whole thing. It was a 1-drop. Like you could roll multiple 2-ups to make them fight last.
Oh yeah.
And then like every wound you did generated depravity, and you would just be summoning
every wound their heroes did as well. So it was wounds done to their heroes and wounds done by their heroes on things with multiple wounds. So usually by the time your first or second combat phase, they'd summoned an additional Keeper of Secrets just because you hurt their current ones. And if you killed them, they effectively could almost summon them back by that point in the game.
Yeah. Each one of your keepers that took wounds, I reckon, un-FAQ'd first release Slaanesh probably still batters everything in this meta. I'm trying to think. I mean,
sure.
Squigs will give him a good run, but they'll murder a lot of fucking Squigs, Nathan.
Yeah.
Because you'll damage them on the charge, which they'll generate points, depravity. This is the old book, right? You'd hit them on the charge, they'd generate depravity points, they'd make you fight last, they'd fight twice, and then if anything that was left to fight would generate them more depravity points, and all of your Squigs are 2 wounds, right?
Yeah.
So every one of them that dies generates a depravity point for them. So before you've attacked, they've probably summoned a new Keeper of Secrets per unit of Squigs.
Yeah. I personally, thinking about it now, it had an 80% win rate, and then it went down to a very casual 70% win rate for 9 months. Yeah, people were just everyone in the world was just winning with it. I was like, what's the fucking point of us being here? Stat Center was so dull. I was like, if you think you're like, oh Rob, I've heard you say the Lumineth Castle a lot. I'm like, fucking watch. This is a green and pleasant land, which I'm living in. Anyway,
I remember playing against them with because this was still dispossessed mode, and the way that I beat them was mostly because all my troops are 1 wound, so they were only generating depravity off me from my heroes. but I just had to like hold and shoot off the 2 or 3 keepers that came, then wait for them to summon 1 or 2 more and shoot that off, and then I could start playing the game and just pray that there were enough turns left for me to score points. Like it was an awful book to play against.
To be fair though, it did require you to use multiple command ability, the same command ability multiple times, which you wouldn't be able to do anymore. But probably the AOS 3 version of that would give you access to that. But then what's fun is it was so wildly fucked, it was so wildly broken, and it was like Lumineth, where you ended up with like a wave 1 and a wave 2. So we saw like the demon side, and then we eventually saw like the mortal side. So like we saw with Lumineth. So it kind of felt like which was probably what we're going to see for Cruel Boys. I'm very much feeling that. And then when we did see the Mortals included, like that second book, which is the current book, was real bad. Like loads of fights on the internet about how bad it was, but it turned out to be truly shit. Like absolutely mega shit. Because it turns out, like the first one, everyone was like, yes, super well designed, but just a few problems. It didn't have anything in it other than fight twice, strike last, like army wide, which turns out to be
good summoning.
Fight
twice, strike last, good summon.
Yeah, which turned out to be mega good. And then they took that away from them, and everyone was like, oh, this fucking sucks. And it did suck for a long time. Which is sad because it's got some of the best minis maybe in the game, maybe in all of miniature wargaming. So I don't know what we're going to see with this new book. If anyone wants to know what they currently play like a bag of shit. So like they're a combat army, bit of shooting, all of it's bad. That's my current review. If someone was to ask me.
They went from hero to zero very quickly.
Yeah, they went to anti-hero. I mean, people have still done well with them. Slaanesh won an event this weekend, just gone. Somehow. Went 5-0. Like, they have gone 5-0 in this edition of Age of Sigmar. So, like, legit in a lot of ways. But my question to you both is, hit, miss, or middle? Because, like, I feel like they swung so aggressively the other way last time. I feel like this, again, needs a redesign from the ground up. They've got loads and loads of units. They've got big monsters in the Keeper of Secrets. If I can wish list one thing, if you don't mind, I want Shalaxi to be like 220 points, and I want it to be more deadly than a Maw Crusher. I want Shalaxi to have to be like if you have a monster that's a hero, Shalaxi wins.
Yeah,
that's it every time, because that's her job. She's a duelist, and she's a Keeper of Secrets duelist with a spear. That's what I want. That's my wish list.
I hope that she also kind of hunts galley vets. Like, I don't mind a big monster like that. What do? They hunt monster heroes, and that big spear, they're just reaching over, and you've got your little 5-wound clan rat, and she's like, nope, and just like stabs it and plucks it up into the air, and it's done. Like, that's fine, because Shalaxi has sucked hot garbage since she was released, so it'd be nice to see her get some time in the sun.
Yeah, I'd really like to see it. Nathan, you got any Slaaneshi wish lists?
Well, like you say, the models are so great. The Keeper of Secret models are awesome. Those 2 other weird heroes, Sinessa and whatever, they're cool.
Yes.
The Mortals have always sucked, so it'd be great to see them perform, to be fair. Because it was demons mainly when they were kicking butt, wasn't it, really?
Yes. It was the demons. It wasn't the Mortals. It was never the Mortals.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see some Mortals running around, and Slangor, obviously, as well.
They're good now. They're super good. From the Beast of Chaos book, they're really good. Yeah. The comedy is if they then go back to being terrible in this book.
So in Beast of Chaos, it's like, Slangor rock, and then when they're like, we're here, friends, they're like, mate, no, thank you.
That'd be cool just to see them out again. Yeah.
What's quite interesting with the Slaanesh book as well, Nathan, I think you hit the nail on the head, is they've got, like, probably one of the, like, other than Lumineth, probably one of the biggest new release ranges that we've got. And the miniatures are phenomenal. Sinessa, Gluttos, we've got all the demon stuff, all the foot characters, Painbringers. Like, they've legitimately got the options to do a Slaves to Darkness, where they're like, right, okay, every unit has a role in this army. Like, we have every option. Like, we've got a weird bird thing that's a peacock. Give that something. We've got a fucking dude having dinner on a chariot. give that guy. Like, you can legitimate, like, it's, yeah, like, it's actually phenomenal. Actually, thinking about it, I think I'm actually really hyped for this, because I think this legitimately has got the most chance to show them as game designers flexing. This is where they can really, like, because the Shalaxi and A Keeper of Secrets have zero to do with the fucking giant peacock lady thing, which have little to do with the Painbringers or Orgots. They're so wildly different, right?
Yeah.
And
they got some real cool little heroes as well.
Oh,
so,
yeah, man. Yeah. Like,
you
if I
never
could
see
paint...
those, so,
you never see them. Yeah, like Lord of Pain's really cool. The one from the Vanguard box, I forget that one's name, that's phenomenal. The Shard Speaker, that's what it's called. It's just, the harp thing is really great.
Yeah.
The dual, like the one on top of the other one's shoulders as
Oh,
well.
yes, of course. Yes, that's not Sinessa, is it? That's
something.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the Demon Prince dude. And they've got, like, their own in the spells and a fucking terrain piece. They are pretty complete book model-wise. They're just...
Actually, I'd forgotten about their terrain piece. That was the other thing about the original book that fucking sucked, because
summoning?
I know we're going back to it, but just to talk about the first Slaanesh book, you got a crazy... You sacrifice stuff... You sacrifice stuff into their terrain piece, right? For those that don't remember or don't know. But you could use a once per game artifact turn 1 and then throw it used. So you've used it, you've got the buffs, and then throw it into the portal to get maximum rewards for sacrificing it. Even though you sacrifice nothing because it was a once per game artifact. It's still an artifact, it only works once per game. So you could be like, cool, I use it, I throw it into the thing, and I get super buffs. No downside.
Yeah, it was a mistake. Let's put it that way.
Fucked.
It was crazy. So yeah, like, I think that this is the book maybe I'm most excited about. Like, I think Khorne's very cool, but Khorne I think is a real problem, because it's kind of like it's just a really interesting.
It competes with Iron Jaws and all of that, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah, but like, and I feel like it, like, that also has a bunch of great minis, and then you're then being like differentiating between Wrathmongers, Blood Warriors, and Skull Reapers is already a problem before you add the exactly the same, like, role in the army Bloodletters that you're going to throw in there as well. Then you got like, so they're all in that kind of like heavyweight, we're going to like stab you to death tier, right? Then you've got like then you've got Khorne Juggernauts. And then you've also got the guys, the demon versions of those, and you're like, what's the fucking difference? You've got 4 Bloodthirsters, Scarbrand and the 3 other Bloodthirsters.
They all want to do the same thing to you.
Yeah, they all want to do the same thing. That's actually...
Whereas the Keeper of Secrets, all of them want to do different things to you. And some of them are very interesting.
They want to do different naughty things to you.
So, sometimes, they all want to do the same different things to different people, and it's just
So like, I think the Slaanesh one's probably the most exciting, but Khorne's probably going to be the most interesting. Definitely 2 options for them to really flex, and after what they did with KO, because I'm feeling more and more confident after the KO review about KO. This is the 2 that I'm like, okay, time to wow me. Because, or we're going to get a copy and paste, which is fucking devastating, I think, for everybody, but we'll see.
There is also the chance that that's going to happen.
Poor Skaven. All right, final bit of news is we've got the Skink Starseers, okay, our cold-blooded clairvoyants who use the heavens. So we got a new skink model, basically, as you can see here, with some updated rules, and I thought it was worth talking about as well. So we got a new Skink Starseer. So the old Teto Echo is no more.
Great.
And now there is a new... I like the original Teto Echo. It's one of my...
It was a cool model, but it was a little bit dated compared to the new stuff.
You honestly think so? I don't think it was dated at all. I think that was... I'm not much of an old Hammer person, but I think that one was like 10 out of 10, in my personal opinion. But it was fine cast or whatever. So, Dan, you like this one? You think this is good?
I love it. I think it's great. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Okay. All right. Nathan, what are your thoughts?
I didn't even know that there was another Seraphon model, so I'm just looking at it now. That's all right.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Let's give you a minute. Let's give you a minute, mate. Don't worry. Tell me
He's on a fancy chair, isn't he?
He's on a very fancy chair.
The fanciest.
And he's got a sweet helmet.
What, his little... yeah, he has.
There's different types of helmets he can have. Oh, they're all pretty cool.
I also love the model can either be like ruminating over a crystal ball or holding the crystal ball and sitting in the chair. Like even that for me is a really nice, like it's small, but it's a great little, just a great little piece to it.
Yeah, so a question does arise, though, because obviously we're in the... we don't know if this Seraphon is going to be out at the same time as Galician Champion's still going to be in it. But the real question is, Nathan, he's technically, I guess, on a chair.
Yeah.
So, Dan, Nathan, is that a mount or no longer a mount?
I think it should be a mount, but he probably will also have some kind of bodyguard rule where he can power stuff off. Because I think the purpose of the Galician veterans is that they can hide. You know, like they can be...
You mean Galician champions, you mean?
Champions, sorry, yeah. Is that they can be hidden, where he's not a subtle boy.
Yeah, you can't hide on a chair like that, can you? Well, you can hide behind the chair.
Not a floating chair with a gigantic visible power disc, you know? Like, it's just, you stand out like dog's balls.
You do stand out. I really like the star map behind him. I think the star map's really great. I think it's really nice.
That's just Nathan's necklace.
It does, yeah. Nathan, you've dressed up. Nathan, we didn't know, but you've dressed up as the Starseer.
Yeah, fuck, I should have put my helmet on.
Yeah, that would have been perfect. That would be perfect. I think it's a great model. I don't dislike the old model though. We're definitely now getting the techno. They've integrated that techno vibe very heavily into it now. They're definitely now space lizards.
Yeah,
I think that we can confirm. There was for a while we're not sure. There's a good question in the chat. What else do we think is coming? I think Croxagora is an obvious one. I think if they're updating salamanders, they're probably updating Razordons as well.
Yeah.
Well, Razordons might just disappear too. Like there may be units that go the way of the dodo.
That's true.
Well,
that's true.
But the Razordon model's not that bad compared to the fucking old salamander models.
I agree. I quite like the Razordon model, but like maybe they're just going to do away with a bunch of stuff. We're not sure.
Is the Razordon resin?
Razordon is resin. And the Temple Guard are also... not Temple Guard, sorry.
Not that matters, because they've kept resin stuff in other ranges. So
they have. They've tried to get rid of it as many places as they can, though.
Yeah.
The big thing I want to see is them bring back the old D6 reroll rule for the Starseer. That's what I want. I want to bring back...
Me too.
They never will. They won't.
Guessing.
But God, that was a great. That was a great little
and
bit
staring competitions.
Yeah, guessing game. That was the best time.
That was great.
Yeah. So
it looks like it's going to be a big release, though. There's so many models coming every week. There's bloody Seraphon stuff.
So what have we got? We've got a new Slaanesh. Well, it's quite. I mean, like, so Croak didn't come from. Yeah, Croak didn't come from anywhere, right? There's like, I'm pretty certain it's kind of like where I'll like if we just kind of save that convo to the end. Like what I mean is like they didn't just design Croak and then start nude sculpts. Like I'm almost
sculpts.
Nudes. Send
oh
nudes.
yeah, that's because of the he says that because of the you know the Saurus have they've got the
bulge.
They've got the groin, they've got the mons pubis.
Yes. So like I think we're going to see Saurus Knights. We're also going to see Temple Guard out of this range. But what I was trying to say was, you pricks. Yeah, we'll talk about it at the end. Anyway, Skink Starseer, Scry the Stars is the ability that we've been showcased.
Does that mean we have to say hello again?
No, we're not saying hello anymore. I promise.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Honest Wargamer.
Oh my God!
This is the
Rob's
end.
your host, Tim. This is Nathan, and I'm Dan.
Scry the Stars. Once per battle in your hero phase, you can say that this unit will scry the stars. If you do so, roll a number of dice equal to the number of the current battle round. So turn 2 will be 2. For each 2+, you can pick one friendly Seraphon unit on the battlefield. That unit has a ward of 5+ until the start of your next hero phase.
What the hell?
That's a solid turn.
That's a solid set of rules if you can read.
Yeah, he's gonna be 60 points. That's great.
Bro, it's once per battle. So like
Oh,
turn
is it
one,
only once per battle?
yes.
Oh, okay.
So like,
Yeah.
well, like I could just like turn one, just be like, okay, one unit's getting a 5-up ward. Turn two,
fair
2
enough,
units.
fair
I think it's
enough,
quite interesting.
It's great for like that clutch turn 3, turn 4 push. You know, like where your opponent's trying to push you off objectives, and you use it to push back or to hold. I actually really like that as an ability.
Really good if you've got the start of the turn as well. Then they get the turn, then they get the double. You'll have it over a long period of time.
I guess that's the thing is, it is in your hero phase, so you want to do it on a turn where you have the top.
Yeah,
Until
potentially.
the start of your next hero phase. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so I think it's quite interesting. And again, like it's quite fun seeing Seraphon next to Slaanesh as one of our upcoming books, because obviously Seraphon, when they got released, were medium good. Is how I would describe them. Completely fine.
Charitable.
Absolutely no dramas from the Seraphon army. And then since then, there's been a fair amount of complaints. I wonder if they'll scale that back a little bit. Thank you. Thank you. Or whether they'll be cold-blooded and... oh no, I'm not taking this any further. Anyway, yeah, we'll do. I mean, the power level of Seraphon was very strong, so it'll be interesting to see where it goes. I think everyone's going to be hyped no matter what, because the models are just sick, right?
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be a big release. So, and that always gets people's juices flowing.
I also think Seraphon's going to be a good release because they're a great army for people. Like, and that's something like talking about design, right? Like Saurus, Skinks previously were a great army for people to pick up if they weren't crazy confident with painting, because they were largely skin and scale with a couple of items on them, and then you could add more, or as you went up towards heroes and more elite troops, you had more detail. So I do hope that they're still in a place where they can easily be put together. Because they do look like the Saurus stuff that we saw looked quite cleanly designed, and I really liked that personally.
I think it looks very good. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think there's loads of detail on the other minis.
Yeah, on them bird things, there's loads of feathers and stuff, isn't there?
Yeah, they look great. And
this chair guy.
Yeah, someone was unhappy you dissed the salamander when in the YouTube comments last time, Nath. Like, it was funny.
Well, it's ugly as fuck.
Let's go. Let's double down. Oh, thank you.
This ain't no down like double down.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Welcome.
So the last bit, because we won't have time to cover KO today, so we won't do that. We'll do that on another show. I wanted to talk to you both about something that I've been kind of like working through. And I wonder what your thoughts are. So we're quite far into the edition now, and in fact, because we now know 3 of the Battletomes that come in the future, we know that the other 2 Battletomes are, well, 2 of the others are going to be Death, and they're going to be Soulblight Gravelords and OCR Bone Reapers, with Flesh Eater Courts, which we thought was in the summer, being later in the year. And then we also know we've got the kind of like the Penitent Crusade, the Cities of Sigmar, whatever it's going to be, the Crusader, non-problematic Dawnbringers, thank you, come in. So we know we got that as well. I wonder, because we're now, 18 months, not even that, away from a new edition. So we're halfway through, effectively. So I was wondering what you both thought, because it's kind of been quite interesting as a release. I'll try and fire off the neurons as you go. The thoughts is I feel like it's a fairly miserly edition. I've absolutely loved this edition rules-wise, but miniatures release-wise, it's felt very thin. And I'd like to talk about some of those elements now. So just to kick us off, we had new Stormcast, obviously, and we had new Kruleboyz. Then we went into Nurgle, and I don't think we got anything for Nurgle. I think we got a character. Yeah, we did. We got the Rotbringer Coven Sorcerer.
Yes.
We got Nurgle. And then now I just got to think through, haven't I? What did we ended up getting? We've ended up with Gits. We got a character for Gits. And the Wolves. Apologies. And the Wolves. Talk about that. We got Tzeentch.
Which,
we got
oddly enough, sorry, just to jump in,
yeah.
we did get Wolves for Gits, but then Wolves aren't the hero of that book. Squigs are the hero of that book.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
It's odd to be like, this is the new sculpt and a hero. However, the old sculpt is what you're going to want. No one wants Wolves when they can have Squigs.
Yeah.
We also have Beasts of Chaos at the same time.
Beasts of Chaos, we had a Beast Lord. That's all we had for that range. And then we had Tzeentch, and we just had a foot character. We had Fire Slayers, we had a foot character. We had Daughters of Cain, we had a foot character. I think that's most. Oh, we had Skaven, we had a foot character. Then we had Slaves to Darkness, and we had like a fairly big release. Sylvaneth had some, definitely. We had what, 3 kits for Sylvaneth? We had like a tree. We didn't get Dryads updated. We had an LRL foot character because I forgot LRL came out. Nighthorn ended up with the crossbows. And actually, Nighthorn ended up kind of interesting. Crossbows, the boat, and then the Screeber Mortis, which is kind of a weird one. Which was pretty interesting. So like, I guess that's kind of what I like. This is more of a litmus test. This is more of like a question. So maybe it should be a separate video. Hello, welcome to Wargamer. No,
My name's Rob.
No, the question is for everyone in the chat, anyone watching on YouTube or as a podcast, because I would like to know. I'd like to crowdsource an answer. I guess really, how have you felt about the edition so far? Because we know there'll be a new edition in a year and a half. And we know that there'll be, let's say, a new Fire Slayers book, right? And the Fire Slayers range was like new in Age of Sigmar, and I was really shocked that we didn't end up with like some Fire Slayer Cav or something. And then there's some really good evidence that Games Workshop has loads of sculpts for ranges, and they just haven't put them out. Like for instance, when we saw Croak released, and now we're seeing all the Seraphon 2 years later, because we saw that during Broken Realms, right? So we saw that then. That means that they had them then. We saw Slaanesh Demons come out, and then 2 years later we saw Slaanesh Mortals come out. We saw half LRL, we saw half LRL. So we know that they're arranging stuff in like, that they're sculpting massive ranges, and then they're just sat on them. And I guess, I don't know, like, some of them have felt very miserly. Like the Skaven one was just like, here's a book, like, and a bit of a placeholder. And I wonder.
Oh no, they got a book and they got an assassin.
Yes, they did. You're right. You're right. But like, also, like, I mean, do I want them to double the size of the range of the Gloomspite Gits? That's kind of a question. Someone will say something along the lines of like stock issues and everything else, but understand that I really don't give a fuck about GW, and I'm thinking about us as a consumer only. I'm like, do I want twice as many Goblin models? Answer: yes. Like, yeah, like they're like, but they can't store it.
Yes.
I'm like, that sounds like a them problem, not a me problem. Yeah, like so I guess I'm asking, how do you two feel about it? Dan, what are your like kind of initial thoughts?
I actually don't mind it being a tighter edition as far as model releases go. If the models they released maybe had a bit more impact in every release, if that, I don't know if I'm making a lot of sense, but like, so the Squig boss, right? I don't mind that he released and it was like, this dude makes Squigs fucking rock. You know, like that was a big thing there. But then there've been other like the Skaven Deathmaster that they released. I'm pretty sure I've never seen in a tournament list outside of some fun skew lists taking like that focus on Eshin. And that like, or ogres, right? The ogre model that they released was clearly supposed to replace the current Icebrow Hunter, who is still resin, because they have almost identical rules and almost identical loadouts. They just do the same thing with a tiny difference. One brings dogs, one hides in the bushes. So all I'm saying is, like, I don't mind our hero because I think it slows the bloat, the overwhelming bloat of it. But when they're not, or when the majority of them you don't have a reason to put in your army, that for me is not well done.
Yes. Okay. Interesting. What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, that was fair point. In that, obviously, I wouldn't mind if there were a load more goblin units, but possibly my girlfriend might worry because then there would be no other room in the house.
Sounds like a her problem.
Yeah, that's a her problem. So the bloat is a thing, I guess. That word from
the internet.
From down.
Yeah.
So that would be a thing to think about, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking about it now. So that just means this General's Handbook's only got a few more months, then, is it?
4 and a bit months till the summer.
Yeah, six monthly changes. So we should see one end of June to mid-July, right?
Yeah. And then we've got a year left on the edition, which takes us to Christmas. And Christmas, we end up with like the Broken Realms narrative, whatever it will be for this version of the game. And I really do not mind a continuing like narrative. I legitimately don't mind. I think the thing that kind of gets me a little bit, especially when the rules are very copy and pasted, feels kind of rough. But like if you're because again, like maybe all three of us, Nathan, actually in fact, actually, no, just me, Nathan and Dan, you're pretty good representatives of people who normally stick to an army and like an army. And I think financially, a lot of people really only commit to an army or two. And like Nathan just said, space becomes an issue. So, you've been through a generation with a book, and then you're like, right, new book. We talk about support for Age of Sigmar all the time. There's definitely a new rule. There's definitely a new rule book. But I feel like I definitely want new minis. Like if I'm building a new army and a new faction, I don't just want a 1 foot, like one character on foot. Like Fireslayers are a good example. Like I'm really turned around on Fireslayers at the minute. I think there's some really fun stuff, especially with the Flamekeeper. And like you could definitely kit bash and or just use proxy minis to make a very cool looking Fireslayer army versus the one that they have. Imagine if you just did Dwarf Snaith with like great weapons instead of like Fireslayers, right? Like that'd be cool. So like I like that idea.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is a legit way to do the hobby is to rotate armies. And you see people do it, that just buy an army, paint it up, play with it for a few months and then sell it and then do it repeat and rinse and repeat. And that's it's a legit way to hobby, and people get a lot out of the hobby doing that. And I guess they would love it if there were new models, because then that would be like, well, that's my next army is lined up, so I'll just go into those.
Yeah. Like Slaves to Darkness, I think, have been wildly popular because they got a bunch of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like they got a lot of miniatures, which is quite exciting. I mean, Chaos is generally popular anyway. So I got a comment in the chat from Winlaw. This has been my first 18 months of Warhammer, only known 3.0, and it's been great. But I've had the whole range to explore. It's now getting to the point where I feel new units could be coming out faster than deepening some of those. Out faster and deepening some of those army options. And he's only been in it for 18 months. Like it's not a complaint. It's just more of a like, I wonder how everyone feels about it, because when I see another book with another foot character, I mean, Khorne's quite exciting, and Slaanesh. Because effectively, we've never seen those minis on the tabletop, like in a roundabout way. So it'd be really fun, and they have pretty much like. If you were to say to me, "Hey, let's release a new Slaanesh models," I'd be like, "I don't know what you would add." Like honestly, I don't know what you would add. So,
but I just wanted to quickly jump on the other side of needing new minis is giving new lease on life to minis that didn't have it before. And I'll use the KO book as an example. Skywardens fucking sucked. They barely saw play. They weren't, and a lot of that. The previous book was a mess. The new book and the new foot character combined with the changes to minis, models, frigates, boats has given that range a whole new lease on life.
Yeah, so but also wouldn't you like Dan, like talking about KO is a perfect example, right? Because KO and Lumineth are in like different worlds. Like, I don't know what you would want to add to a Lumineth army. Lumineth players be like, literally everything, Rob. Give me everything I want.
Well, there's a whole...
I want a 5th book in 6 months.
Yeah.
There's, what's his name? Tyrion coming up, wasn't he?
Tyrion, Also, I'm not saying the words to summon the weebs, but Malekith.
So there's going to be loads more. Like this,
Malekith?
The same again.
Yeah. You're right. There will be more elves at least, but like at least Tyronic elves would be like Tyrion. I guess. Maybe this is a better way to think about it. How do you feel about this? Like with Gitz is a fucking massive range, Nathan. Yeah. Like I think it would be fair to say that you could probably not release any more Gitz, and it'd be fine for quite a long time, if probably ever. Like it feels like I don't want to say completed it, mate, but it feels like a completed range. Whereas Fireslayers, and a lot of dwarf racism here, Fireslayers, KO, we could have seen some more Fireslayer units, and we could have seen probably some more KO units, because they definitely don't have the range that Slaanesh does. So like, so are we saying that if a range is complete, we don't really mind because like Gits have got a million options. But if a range has got like a smaller set of miniatures, you're like, yeah, that's when I feel disappointed.
Yeah. The fact that Fire Slayers haven't seen anything other than a couple of foot heroes since their initial release is absurd.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's what I'm trying to get at. Especially when like you got like little Dick Bigheart in the chat just put getting Wolf Riders makes less sense than updating the spiders. That's because they quite clearly are sat on an entire Git mob army. That's what I'm trying to say. Like if you see they didn't just go, I might just sculpt 5 Wolf Riders. Like they never did that. Like there's not a guy who just did that for like there's an entire Git mob range designed somewhere in storage ready to rock.
But like, you reckon that's also lined up for old world stuff when that turns up?
No, different departments, Nath.
That's like a big part of the old world was the goblin.
Yeah.
Like the regular goblin dudes.
Yeah, those are different departments, so they would not design stuff for each other.
Oh, okay.
So that wouldn't happen. So like, yeah, like, so, but that feels like a weird release. Like, you're like, what the fuck? Like, does Nathan, you know about that unit? Does it synergize with the rest of the book at all?
No. No, well, I mean,
just a thing.
You can put some buffs on them from like the spore splatters and stuff, but there's no proper synergy. No.
Okay.
Winlaw points out in the.
Go on,
I was just saying, Winlaw points out in the chat like Skaven's desperate for a refresh, and I'd say Skaven is actually a great example of an army that maybe it's actually is quite similar to Seraphon, that are obviously getting a complete redesign, in that some of their models hold up really well. Like they're sculpts from back in Warhammer Fantasy from the old world, but they hold up great. Like Storm Fiends, I would say even the Bell, like Thankwall, like there's a lot of that. That's great. And Clan Rats, honestly, you don't really need Clan Rats to do anything else. But then you have things like Plague Priests, a bunch of those old resin and metal heroes and stuff that you're just like, how? How is there still so much pressure for Pestilens to be an army in the game, and yet Plague Monks haven't been updated? They clearly, and like Gutter Runners, like they clearly look different to the current. Oh yeah, Acolytes being the most expensive model, $1 for weight or $1 for size and game points in the game, money-wise. Like
so would you say? Because what I'm trying to get at is a feeling when you see a release like we've seen this weekend, that like new Khorne, 1 miniature, new Slaanesh, 1 miniature, and I kind of am like, that's okay. I don't really feel like they need anything. Like that's where I'm at. Where
lots of up-to-date minis in those ranges that we don't see anyway because the rules need to come around. But then there are, like the Skaven one is a huge example where you would expect that they've got loads of models in there that could be updated.
Yeah, and then KO and Fire Slayers, and I think even Tzeentch to a degree, if I can be that guy, because Tzeentch got some demons, and then they were like, that's it, and you're like, do I get the mortal side of it? Like you got Carrick Acolyte, suck it. And you're like, no. Like, I want
Carrick Acolyte's a great sculpt. I love those models, but they just...
Yeah, but they came out years ago. They came out with the demons.
I know. So you want some elite versions of them. Yeah, there's other ranges like that. So the Skaven needs updating, but then there's other ranges like those ones that need expanding a bit, really. So.
Yeah, and that's what I find weird, and I understand it from their perspective, because they're just a business, right? They're like, cool, we want you all to buy Slaves of Darkness. Cool, you've all done that. And then we're going to release Cities of Sigmar. We want you all to release Cities of Sigmar. And like, so that, and they, every few years, they pad the edition. They're effectively filler episodes, right? Like from a TV show. It's just filler episodes. Just like whatever. There's no actual story here. Off you go. And even worse when the rules are fitting that. So it's actually on a case-by-case basis versus kind of the whole edition is what you're feeling. And also, like, I guess I'm just thinking about it now. The other thing is obviously we got into Age of Sigmar when nothing had a book. And so for a long time we were like, bro, we need a book for this army. Like, and it took years, like years and years sometimes to get a book for an army. And so I guess there's still a bit of that kind of old age Sigmar player in me, but like, come on, update it so I know it's not getting cancelled. Update it, come on. Is it getting cancelled? Is it? You did? No, okay. Like Dispossessed at one point, you could play just Dispossessed, Dan, and it's like you see it's now, bitch, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not deleted. That's great. Yeah,
I'm not deleted, but also they were like, there's one hero or two heroes, two different boxes of units, and gyrocopter, and I was like, oh, okay, so we don't have artillery anymore. And they're like, no, dwarves
even
aren't known
though
for
it's
their
in the
artillery.
stories all the time. Yeah,
Dwarven
cannons did this. Grey water fastness cannons are renowned for blowing shit up. And then, well, there's no grey water fastness cannon in the
game. Yeah,
in dwarves
dwarves now are dispossessed. Now are a war, which I understand. I get it. You're releasing sky dwarves, fire dwarves. It doesn't make sense to continually expand the range like that. I get it, but it's like dispossessed. They're in the story. They're everywhere in these cities, and then on the tabletop, you're like, you got a Warden King, you got a Rune Lord, multi-box Longbeards and Hammerers, and then a multi-box Iron Drakes and Ironbreakers, and you're like, oh, okay. So what about that famous Dwarven artillery? No. Okay, what about those famous Dwarven Thunderers, the gun lines? No.
Oh, they keep bringing up cogsmiths all the time as well.
Yeah.
And what are the cogs fixing? Fucking Empire.
Human machine. Yeah, of course. It's like the cogsmiths are like, if they're like, hey mate, do you want to make us a cannon? They're like, nah, they're literally
fix that rocket battery.
They are the definition. They're the definition of middle management, in that they don't actually want to do any work themselves. They just want to complain about the poor work of their subordinates. That's what a cogsmith is these days.
God, Games Workshop managers. Okay, so not the reason I bring it up, because I'm trying to get a feel for the edition, mainly because like, when you review something for a living, like, it's quite interesting to kind of see how everyone else feels. Also, like, off the back of it, and not to like dig the knife in, this is just the truth. I watch, like, we do a show every month. I think I'm going to do one this week, where we look at all the 3D designs from different Patreon stuff, like, which you all know, like, I do a lot of that. Not to be a 3D printer bro. It's not that they're cheaper. It's not that they're better. Ogres are a great example. Ogres they're not even that old, the Ogres. The Ogres are fine, yeah? But, like, I started at the top of the show saying that I've just 3D printed a bunch of brand new Ogre sculpts, which I think look better, and I think they're cool, and they're wicked. Skaven, for example, I 3D printed a bunch of... Well, no, I didn't print Skaven, sorry. I actually printed Rat Engineers. Sorry, let's be clear. Yeah, which were like... yeah, thank you.
Legally distinct.
Legally distinct Rat Engineers with an addiction to warp rocks as opposed to stone. But yeah, they look so good. Yeah, but I'm not even necessarily talking about proxies where you get updated minis. I'm talking about, like, whole ranges that are released on a monthly basis, and you see those sculpts and you're like, damn, I wish they had rules in this game. Do you know what I mean? Like if there was imagine like a modern Bretonnian army, and there are great sculpts out there for, or a modern Tomb King army, and there are loads of 3D designers. Like next month someone will just be like, here's a Tomb King army, there you go, and it will look incredible, right? It'll look really good, and you can't play it in the game, and it feels like when you get in this, like, not drip feed, but almost this dearth of stuff from the main company, because they're a behemoth. Someone in the chat was like, what does a local gaming store do with all of these minis? I'm like, again, sounds like a them problem. Like, if you played a computer game religiously, I know, let's say Total War, right? And then there was and there are modders, right, for Total War, and they just make mod after mod after mod after mod after mod. And you're like, okay, now you can all play halflings. And you're like, well, they're not in the official game. It's like, I don't give a fuck. You play halflings, off you go, and go have some fun. That's wicked. Like, so as a consumer, because again, that's all I give a fuck about. Don't care about, like, I'm on this side with everyone else. Release halfling armies. Do you know what I mean? Release all of these other things. Release the Hippo Warriors, is what I'm saying. And it feels weird to keep seeing these drip feed releases when on these 3D design companies, you're probably getting 200 minis a month that are better than Games Workshop minis. Like, I'm just going to say it now. Like, and that's weird. It's a weird like environment where everyone's like, I'll buy that one new priest on foot, and you're like, like, that's all they've got. That's their clout. Like, they're, like, showing it off. Like, it's fucking weird, Dan, if I'm honest. They, like, show off one priest, and they're like, that's it. that's Khorne for 3 years, and you're like,
Yeah.
bro, what the fuck? Like, do better.
The only thing I can assume, I actually, this just kind of came to me, and I put a little bit of weight to it. You're familiar with the concept of a bottle episode, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those
Nath?
who aren't, Nath, for those who might not be aware, so say you're watching a TV show, and then there'll be a thing called a bottle episode. It's got a few different names where not much, like it's in one or two very controlled small locations and with not much outside of the core characters. So anyone who's watched Breaking Bad, the Fly episode, people know what I mean by that. Or and the purpose of it is to cut down costs. So by filming that episode, you only need a smaller crew. You don't need expensive locations. You don't need to hire, day players or additional actors or background. It's really simple lighting states. Like everything is cut down and simple. So you save money on those episodes so you can spend big on your later episodes. Fun fact, anyone who's worked for the CW, enjoys CW shows, that's pretty much how they used to run their stuff so they could afford their multi-million-dollar fight sequences.
Oh, amazing!
They'd scrimp and save everywhere. They were not. From my experience, was that I didn't enjoy working on those shows because they were so tight on their budgets everywhere to afford the big flashy stuff. So that's what you do with a bottle episode. It's to save money by cutting costs for 1 or 2 episodes, in the same way as a clip episode, like a flashback episode where it's only a small bit of new material and the majority of it is flashbacks to update you on the story. Same thing. It's saving money so you can splurge on later episodes that need big locations, lots of stunts, flashy action, 3D. I wonder if maybe that's this edition or this season for Games Workshop. It's a bottle season where they're not expending a crazy amount in their mini releases to try and save money, make money, so that they can afford a big flashy next edition. Like, I'm not necessarily saying I know that that's the case. I'm just speculating that maybe that would be a purpose behind it.
I like the theory. I like what Winlaw said in the chat, which makes more sense to me. I reckon they know the optimal release amount to keep people craving and buying, yet not commit overly. Anyway, that's not meant to be like a dig. It's more kind of me as a consumer being, I guess, frustrated, but I don't know if I'm rightly frustrated, if that makes sense. Like I saw a pretty wild Beasts of Chaos release recently with all these new sculpts for and I don't think there was anything overly different in those releases versus the GW sculpts. They were just updated and better, which I thought was cool. And then sometimes I see stuff that's just nuts, like angels with 8,000 eyes, or something, or there was one that was all slimes. Everything was a slime. Yeah. The dragons are slime. The warriors are a slime. The archers, there are pirates who are slimes, and I think it's kind of cool.
Biblically accurate angel army would be great. Put that down on the table, and you'd just be like, oh, I'm uncomfortable looking at this. It's just all furry rings of shit.
Yeah. Okay. It's quite interesting. Nate, do you got any final thoughts on this? And then we can wrap it up.
No, I mean that was interesting to hear. It's a good theory. I don't know if that's if they think like that or what they're doing, but that was interesting. But I mean, I do. I just think that there are a lot of models that they could just update that need updating, as well as the ranges that could do with expanding or condensing together somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting, right? Because we talk about bloat, and then you're like, well, what do people want? You hear the conversation about bloat and the conversation about we want more stuff every day. And I was trying to work out what the line is there, and Chris is making a good point in the chat. You can't spread your portfolio too much because of production and other stuff. But again, as a consumer, I don't care about those issues. That's kind of the point, right? That's why Netflix did so well initially. They were TV was would you like to watch one episode of something you enjoy once a week? And then Netflix was do you want to watch it all today? And you were like, yeah. And they were like, do you want to watch something else tomorrow? They're like, fucking yes, I do. And I just think with all these designs out there in the world, it feels like we're at that point where, I don't know, it'll be an interesting next couple of years. If this is a bottle season, it's a long time, 3 years for a bottle season, right? Because surely you've also got to be encouraging people into the game system.
Yeah. I see. I think new sculpts is exciting, but updating existing ones, I think, would hit. Like, I bet, like, people are ferociously loyal to the armies that they play, especially if you've built and painted a unit. I reckon if they released, say, updated Plague Priest models, Plague Monks. What are they called? Plague Monk models. I think you would find people that have 40 Plague Monks in their army would go out and buy the new ones because they'd want to have the updated, cool, new hotness. Like, I think, I would argue, and chat can correct me if I'm wrong, most people are looking for a reason to spend on their hobby if they can. Like, they're looking to justify those purchases. So if you were to provide models for it, like when the Deathmaster came out for Skaven, I was like, rad, I don't need that model. Like, I don't need to spend anything on my Skaven army this edition except for getting the new book. Like, that's it. That's all I'm going to do for it. Whereas if you'd have put out new Plague Monk models, I would have been like, ooh, maybe I need a unit of them. Rat Ogres. You release a new Rat Ogre unit, and I'd be like, damn. But if I want Storm Fiends, I've already got Storm Fiends because they look good and I know they're not being updated anytime soon.
Yeah. Skaven, I think, definitely feels like a big standout. And I would have said Seraphon, but obviously we're getting Seraphon all sorted.
Yeah. Well, they're getting the treatment, aren't they? So hopefully.
And Fleshy Courts are getting the treatment at the end of the year. So, like, and a little big Dick Hart in the chat has said Stormcast, Cruel Boys, Slaves, Seraphon, Dormitory Crusade, and then Flesh Eater Courts, Seraphon. Like that's a lot, right? So quite interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, Daughters of Cain, I would like to see them get new models. Probably just a case-by-case basis. Anyway, great chatting to you both. Nathan, you got any plans this week?
I'm going to build these Boingrop Pounders, I reckon. And finish me Loon Court as well, so stuff can fight when it dies.
5 months, 2 weeks. 5 months, 2 weeks is fine. Dan, you got any plans this week?
I'm building and painting the interior of an RPG spaceship for an RPG campaign. So yeah.
Fancy that.
Using Dungeons and Lasers terrain. It's rad.
That's cool. I love that a lot. Okay. All right. Really fun. I'm just going to keep pumping ogres out until I've just got maximum meat. That's what I'm trying to hit, the meat threshold, which would be fun.
That's often a threshold people struggle to hit as well, you know, like their meat threshold, it's quite high. So, you know, it's good to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Well, thanks for both you. Chat, thanks for hanging out today. Just to chat about all the news and all the stuff coming up. It's exciting. I'm excited. I'm very, very excited to see the functionality of the 2 new Battletomes we've got coming out, which I'm very, very excited about. So, yeah, looking forward to that a lot. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Thanks for listening to it as a podcast. Stay hydrated. If you watch this back on YouTube, do leave some comments and all that other jazz. And then thanks to everyone on Patreon. Couldn't do it without you. Couple more videos going up on Patreon this week if you want to go check them out. Thanks everyone in the chat, especially because you're the coolest. See you later, chat. See you later, everyone. Bye.